Good day, everyone. Our guest today is a prominent intellectual historian, cultural critic, and one of the most vital voices in Southeast Asian post colonial studies. He's an associate professor at the Department of South and Southeast Asian Studies at the University of California, Berkeley, and the author of the award winning Liberalism and the Post Colony. Of course, he also graduated from the Ateneo de Manila University with a degree in Bachelor of Arts in Communications in 2007. And mind you, he was the class valedictorian lang naman, magna cum laude. His latest book, fresh off Cornell University Press, is The Profligate Colonial: How the US Exported Austerity to the Philippines. It's already being hailed by peers as a vital, incisive history that challenges the very foundations of modern Philippine technocracy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Leloy Claudio.
Um, Thank you very much for that great introduction, Miss Rose. I'm very flattered. I just add one thing. The book is actually already available low cost with our alma mater, Ateneo de Manila University Press. And because all Ateneo de Manila University Press books are available on Shopee, it's very, very easy to get.
Okay, so guys, get hold of your copy now. So, since Leloy, I was telling you nga kanina, na when they told me that Leloy Claudio was the one going to interview me for your Proyecto Pilipino episode, syempre, ginugoogle ko lagi kung sino mag interview sa akin eh. Sabi ko, wow, big time pala tong si Leloy. Kaya,
Ay, grabe naman.
may I interview you back talaga ang bongga, di ba?
Uh,
So, here we
well,
are.
the interview for our show was very fun and I learned a lot. So I'm very happy to be here.
Sige. And because this is FQ Mom channel, FQ stands for Financial Quotient, we start with your family pa rin. Baka bigyan mo naman kami ng the Leloy Claudio origin story.
Wow, ano po ako, when people ask me what I do, I joke and I say that I'm part of the family business because the family business is academia. So my on the mother side, my grandparents were professors at the University of the Philippines. My mom just recently retired from the University of the Philippines. So I'm third generation academic on my mom's side. But the other thing about my family is we're a family of doctors. So my father is a medical doctor. He is an orthopedic surgeon, orthopedic
Oh.
oncology, and then I have multiple doctors on both sides of the family as well. So yun, I'd like to say that I come from professional class. And but what's very interesting, we were talking about it earlier dun sa Proyecto Pilipino. My mother always saved for retirement. And so she actually has a very decent retirement nest egg on top of her GSIS benefits. And I think I learned early on from her the value of investing.
At mas maganda kasi ang retirement ng GSIS kaysa sa SSS.
Yes, 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 of course.
Yun.
Yes.
So, paano ang mga dinner ninyo? Masyado ba kayong worse about academia and all that? Ano ang style ninyo?
Hin-
Kapang ilan ka
Hindi
ba,
naman kasi
Leloy?
ako po yung panganay.
Oh,
And then tatlo kaming Atenista. So I'd like to think that we all have like Ateneo High School humor and that kind of infects the household.
tatlong lalaki rin kayo?
Tatlong lalaki.
High five to your
Yes.
mom. Three
I five,
boy.
yes.
Yeah.
According to her, mahirap daw.
Alam mo ba, yan ang aking very first book, Raising Pinoy Boys. It was about
Mm.
my parenting stories, raising these three wonderful boys. So, we also ask our guests to share a childhood money memory. Meron
Mm.
ka ba? Something that's very vivid to you and you still remember up to now.
I think yung unang memory that I remember is my grandfather for years and years and years. He was a professor sa Department of Pharmacology sa UP Manila. And then he lived a relatively modest life. And then naalala ko, biglang yumaman yung lolo ko towards the end of his life because he took a job with GlaxoSmithKline. And and for some reason, I just remember that his fortunes reversed. And then that linked with the other fortune because I come from a family of doctors. Nakikita ko yung biglang very modest ka one day and then bumabaliktad kasi sa doktor naman ganun din. Sobrang mahirap pag residente and then when you
Oo.
become a consultant, suddenly nagkakaroon ng lifestyle upgrades. So I was witness to two lifestyle upgrades growing up, my grandfather's lifestyle upgrade and then my father's.
Oh, nice.
I don't know why, pero um, buti na lang that didn't give me complacency. Buti na lang that didn't give me complacency. Kasi it's very easy to assume that if you see two massive lifestyle upgrades na mangyayari rin sa'yo, hindi ako naging complacent because I always knew I was going to become a professor. And alam naman natin lahat na ang professor sa Pilipinas, kahit sa Ateneo, in fact, within the big three, Ateneo nga ang pinakamababang sahod ngayon. um,
Alam ko yan.
kahit sa
Nagtuturo ako, part-time teacher.
Oo, tayo. So I knew that I was going to become an academic, so I couldn't be. I was never going to be complacent when it comes to my finances. So
So ngayon, you are working in the US. Can you tell us
yes,
more about your professional background after graduating as the class valedictorian? What was the first job of Leloy Claudio?
ako napakaswerte ko po because I was always certain that I wanted to become an academic, and I wanted to teach because if you're an Atenista, there are many teachers who will inspire you, as you know very well,
Mm,
di ba?
mm,
And
mm.
then when you watch them, you say, gusto ko rin maging ganyan. And that was, and very early on, I think second year college pa lang, sabi ko na gusto ko maging ganyan. So when I graduated, I immediately started with grad school. So natapos ako ng grad school maaga. 2000, I got my PhD in 2011 from the University of Melbourne. So straight to a PhD. And because
Ah,
I was so homesick, I finished the PhD quickly, record time, because I wanted to get back to the Philippines. And then I worked at Ateneo and then I worked at LaSalle. At no point did I ever think I was going to work abroad in the United States.
mm.
Pero ano during one trip to San Francisco, I met an old batchmate from college and then I fell in love with her. And then she was having a great career in the United States. And then at one point I felt I owed it to her to see if I could find a job where she wanted to be. At yun, I applied for a job at UC Berkeley. And then fortunately I got it. And now we're both living in the city that she wants to be. And I've grown to love the United States, living in Berkeley,
Since
California.
when did you start working, rather?
Yeah, January 2020, 2020.
Oh my
So
God.
tatlong buwan tapos biglang nag-shutdown ang lahat at
Oo.
hindi ko pa kabisado yung university, hindi na ako makapasok sa university. So much so that after the pandemic nawawala pa rin ako sa UC Berkeley dahil very small lang yung actual interaction ko with the campus, 3 months lang.
And then, so ngayon, nakaka-anim na taong ka na doon.
Ang bilis ng panahon.
Oo,
Yes.
talaga. Is your wife also
Yeah.
the academe?
No, she's a graphic designer and
Ah,
business graphic designer and business owner. So
mm-mm.
she has a great financial journey also. We have kapareho kami may financial journey but very different kasi she owns
Mm-mm.
her own business and I'm an employee. So I get to see what the financial journey is like for somebody who's self-employed, my wife and
Yes.
myself professional.
Is she Filipina?
She's Filipina, yes. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, sige.
Atenista rin.
Kabatch mo?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Ah, okay. Sino
Mm.
favorite teacher mo pala? If I may ask noon.
Nung time na yon, marami akong favorites but for political science, it was Professor Benji Tolosa. For history,
Tolosa.
Professor June Aguilar, and then for philosophy, Father Luis David, and then somebody whose class I really enjoyed and I saw him actually just last week, si Father Dakanay.
Mm,
Marami namang very common story naman yon na nagiging close kay Father Dakanay and I just saw him last week.
na
Um,
nagbibigay ng
yeah.
bonus pag nananalo sa UAAP, tama ba?
Oo. Yes, yes. Yes.
Okay, so now let's go to your book. Na-intrigue ako kasi economics ako eh.
Yeah.
Anyway, so from what I gather, the main thesis, correct me if I'm wrong, of your book is this: the Philippines' obsession with tight budgets and low
Yes.
inflation is not common sense, but it's a colonial hangover, di
Yeah.
ba? From
Yes.
American rulers who convinced us now we couldn't be trusted with money, and this is
Mm.
what brought us to the ever elusive economic growth. Is this a fair representation of what you are talking about?
too fair and too accurate and too precise. So much so that I'd like to I want to bottle that, transcribe that and use that summary. Yeah.
So ganito, can you please share with us, bakit mo naisipang sulatin itong libro na 'to?
Kasi yung previous book ko, I was writing about unsung histories, unsung people in Philippine
Okay.
history who've
Oo.
contributed a lot to civics, um,
Yes.
through the liberal tradition. And when I was writing that book, I discovered si Salvador Don Badong Araneta.
Okay.
And
Badong
si
Araneta.
Salvador Araneta was an Atenista also, and he
Oo.
was an early believer in what now we would call Christian democracy or social democracy. And part of his agenda was, of course, an expansive state that took care of its people,
Hmm.
through healthcare and through full employment. He was an early Keynesian. And then I was looking at why people thought many people thought Don Badong was crazy. And
Hmm.
I was able to interview the Araneta family also, and marami silang frustrations, particularly si Tita Lina Araneta, yung anak ni Don Badong, because a lot of people dismiss the ideas of Salvador Araneta. And his main idea was that in the 1950s, you should have depreciated the peso to create more fiscal
1950s.
space.
Okay.
1950s. Remember, ito yung panahon na after the Laurel-Langley Act, imposed yung 2:1 ratio sa Pilipinas. In other words, wala kang
Hmm.
pwedeng gawin. He needed to protect the exchange rate of 2:1. But after that expired, the Philippine Central Bank said, we will keep the ratio that was imposed on us by the Americans. And Don Badong said, that's kind of weird because now that we finally have financial autonomy, we're going to stick to the imposition of the Americans. Bakit? So he was one of the few people to challenge that. And everybody thought he was crazy because naging axiomatic at that time that if you depreciated the peso, you would create runaway inflation. And
Oo.
we can talk about whether or not that's true. But the biggest problem here is it's really a colonial hangover because the reason why we had a 2:1 peso arrangement after the Laurel Langley Act is because Americans wanted to protect their own businessmen who were sending a lot of goods to the Philippines. They
Mhm.
wanted they wanted to boost Philippine imports, and these imports were of course coming from the United States. And of course,
Yun.
kung mahal yung piso, mas maraming mabibili yung Pilipino from Americans.
Oo. Tapos, nakatulong din kaya dyan na they were dismissing him as a cray-cray. Dahil, sabi niya parang take care of its people, di ba? The country should be able to
Mm,
take care of its people. Eh, di ba,
mm.
masyadong yung mga Amerikano, masyadong allergic sa mga socialism.
Yes, yes. Oo.
Merong angle din na gano'n.
Pero si Don Badong was of course not a socialist.
Hmm.
He was a bit of a conyo himself. Yung idea, yung noblesse
Okay.
oblige, yung
Mhm.
sobrang yaman ko at dahil mayaman ako, gusto kong tumulong sa kapwa, ganon.
Oo,
It's
oo.
actually, so I think he represents the best and the worst of our university. Yung parang mayaman, may social conscience, pero slightly elitista,
Mm-mm.
slightly conyotic, and somewhat alienating. But in a way, distillation siya of what of the best and the worst qualities of the Atenista.
Oo.
I'd like to say he's more of the best though, kasi
Oo.
I genuinely admire him.
Okay, so yung mantra ko kasi 'di ba, as we were talking kanina, yung design, design, design nga, no? So the behavior change comes from the system design,
Yeah.
not just the information. So based on
Mm.
your book, I kept thinking that's exactly what the American money doctors did, 'di ba? They designed a
Mm.
system that made austerity feel like a virtue. Am I right?
Yes, yes, and actually linked pa to civilizational rhetoric. So when the Americans arrived in the Philippines, they were like, the silver, which was a cheaper currency, is for barbarians. Gold, which
Mm.
which is very difficult to depreciate, is the currency of Rome. It is the currency of men. It is the currency
Oo.
of strong people. And this idea that strong currency equals manly virtue is a is a is an idea that we carried over into the 20th century. I don't know if our viewers remember the late Dondon Paderanga, Cayetano Paderanga.
Mhm.
In the 1990s, si Sir Dondon was advocating for the strategic depreciation of the peso to kind of temper the effects of the Asian financial crisis kasi ang daming hot money na pumapasok ng panahon na yon. Ang sabi sa kanya ng central bank, that is unmanly. So yung
Ayun
metaphor
ang
na
term talaga nga.
Oo, kwento ni Sir Dondon sa
Hindi
akin. So,
macho.
it is hindi macho. Oo. So sabi ko, that's very interesting. And then when I looked at the archives, yung idea yon na hindi macho ang inflation, hindi macho ang murang currency, comes from the 1900s. Ang first evidence that I see of that being said was from the 1900s. And we carried it over to the central bank of the 1990s.
So teka, ito pa isa ha, na kaya ako na-intriga at talagang gusto lang kita kausapin for me to really learn more about it. Kasi a major pillar of your thesis point to the historical role of central bankers going
Mm.
back to Miguel Cuaderno.
Yes, yes.
Trivia, naririnig ko yan sa tatay ko nung nabubuhay pa siya. Parang boss niya yata, si Mr. Cuaderno.
Oh,
Tapos, so parang internalizing this American obsession nga with tight budgets and low inflation. The thing is, this institution is highly regarded as one of the best, personally and by a lot of people, if not the best government-run agency. Care to
mm,
comment on that? Kasi syempre, yan nga yung nagka-interest talaga ako na
uh,
makausap ka eh. Kasi sabi ko,
mm.
BSP!
Kahit naman yung pinapatos. I want to make a distinction between competently run. There are competently run institutions that are committed to policies that I agree with, and there are competently run institutions that are committed to policies I disagree with. And this is not, I think, the fault of any one central banker. Like, for
Okay.
example, si Central Bank Governor Eli Remolona,
Mm.
naalala nyo nung nagtataasan ng interest rates post-pandemic yung mga Southeast Asian Central Bank, the Philippine Central Bank was the most aggressive in terms of raising interest rates, and very comfortable sila na sakalin yung liquidity sa Pilipinas. Nung tinanong si Ramolona, why are you so aggressive? He said that the Central Bank of the Philippines is structurally hawkish compared to other central banks. He is just fulfilling his mandate. So I don't want to personalize this. Hindi ito
Yes.
kasalanan ni Eli Remolona or any other central bank. It is because our central bank, unlike many other central banks, is a single mandate central bank.
Okay, sige. So, pag-usapan natin yung mandate ng BSP,
Uh,
ano? Yung dating Central
mm,
Bank, ginawang Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas.
uh,
Tatlo kasi yun eh, di ba? They have three. Kumbaga, tatlo yung pinaka-major elements ng mandate nila. Una, price stability.
reality.
So, they fight inflation, preserve the
Mm,
purchasing power, and how do they do that?
mm,
Di ba? They adjust the interest rates to
mm,
manage the money supply.
mm,
Mga eco people there.
mm,
Number two, financial stability to
okay.
ensure the banking
Mm,
system, financial
yeah.
systems, they don't collapse.
Mm,
And I think they're also doing a good job.
uh,
How? They supervise banks,
mm,
fintech, etc. Tsaka
yeah.
sila yung lender of last resort. Hindi.
Last resort. Yeah.
And then the third is safe and efficient payments and settlement system.
Yeah.
So ensuring
Mm,
that the money supply moves securely, rapidly,
mm,
smoothly. And how do they do
mm,
this? They regulate systems like InstaPay, PesoNet,
mm,
critical
mm,
financial pipelines, di ba? Para yung mga digital transfers natin.
mm.
Okay. So do you think, because ito nga eh, tama yung kaninang binanggit mo, ito
Ah,
kasi yung mandate nila eh. And they're just
mm,
doing their job very well. So do
yeah.
you think that there should be a change in their
Yeah.
mandate, or just a better balance between BSP and NEDA? Ganun. Ano
Yes,
sa palagay?
well, I think there should be a change kasi tatandaan natin yung 1993 Bangko Sentral Law na sponsor ni Raul Roco. It explicitly said na tanggalin yung developmental mandate ng central bank. Kasi yung developmental mandate ng central bank, inabuso ng Marcos administration. So because of the trauma of that, they said we will just have a effect on monetary policy, although mas maraming ibang goals. But on monetary policy, the singular goal is price
Hmm.
stability over development. Tinanggal yung developmental mandate. And even no panahon ni Quaderno was one of the most conservative central bankers, 1950s, may developmental mandate ang Central Bank of the Philippines. So nawala yon, and that's why Chair Remolona is saying effectively it's a structurally hawkish central bank. So sa akin, ito, napakadaling revision of the law, napakadaling reform, reintroduce the dual mandate of the central bank so that we are in line actually with the Federal Reserve of the United States, diba, which has a dual mandate of price stability and employment. Going back, of course, to yung economics idea ng Phillips curve, that sometimes there's a trade-off between price stability and employment. So,
Sige. Para
Yeah.
dun sa mga viewers natin na hindi maalala yung nangyari, no? Kasi Central Bank of the Philippines dati ang tawag dyan. Pero because naabuso nga during the Marcos dictatorship, di ba? Parang ginawang ATM, na nabangkarote po ang Central Bank. If
Mm.
you want to know more about this, I wrote
Mm.
an article about that, yung bangkarote yata yung title ko eh.
Mm.
So they even had to close that down at come
Mm.
up with a
Mm.
fresh entity. Kaya po tayo nagkaroon ng Bangko
Mm.
Sentral ng Pilipinas. And as you
Mm.
said, dahil nga ganun tayo kasi, para bang we have to situate ourselves. No? When did this happen? It
Mm.
happened during the time na nagre-react tayo dun sa mga abuses ng dictator.
Yes, exactly.
Kaya
Mm.
tinanggal yung developmental, sabi mo, yung developmental function niya. So,
Mm.
mag-focus ka na dito para hindi na maaabuso itong mga tatlong sinabi ko, price stability, financial stability, at saka safe and efficient payments and
Mm.
settlement system.
Mm.
So, ngayon na ganun din sa Constitution, di ba? Nagkaroon tayo na hanggang
Mm.
6 years ka lang, hindi ka
Mm.
na pwedeng mag-another term. We are reacting to what happened to us. So, given all of this, you're saying
Mm.
na sana ibalik nila sa central bank yung developmental function. And what would that entail?
This is not so radical because Indonesia is having these discussions also. Kasi Indonesia meron ding trauma yan with abuse of central bank, particularly the Suharto regime, di ba? So,
Mm-mm.
but now they're also talking about the return of the dual function. If I'm not mistaken, baka na-return na yung developmental function sa central banking ng Indonesia. It just actually reminds central bankers that they should, I mean, to be honest, I think informally, wala namang central banker na papasok dyan and will say, I don't care about employment. Of course they do.
Oo.
Like, just because price stability is the main mandate doesn't
Mm-mm.
mean na gusto nilang mawala ng trabaho lahat ng mga Pilipino at sasakalin na lang nila yung liquidity. Of course,
Yes.
Mr. Remolona thinks about employment. Pero kailangan ibalik sa mandato para lang maging top of mind din yon
Yun.
alongside price stability. And meron of course manifestation yan. Kagaya nga yung favorite example ko nito, yung pinaka-aggressive increase ng rates pa rin ay Pilipinas pa rin. And Remolona just said, dahil yan ang batas eh. I
Yeah.
need to be extra aggressive dahil yan yung batas.
Mm-mm.
And tama naman siya. So I'm not gonna argue with him. It's the law. It's not the
Yes.
central banker.
Oo. Kumbaga, the guy's doing
Mm.
his job. What he's
Yeah,
asked to do,
yeah.
ano?
And he's doing a good job in terms of what the law is asking him to do. So we should change the law, not the central banker.
Mm-mm. Okay. So ngayon, dali natin yung usapan kasi 'di ba, your thesis nga says na itong mga austerity na to nakakasakal yan sa ekonomiya, 'di ba?
Mm. Yeah.
And you said nga na kaya tayo nandito pa rin, very elusive ang economic growth dahil dyan sa mga
Mm.
pinagagagawa natin austerity.
Mm.
Now, I'd like to siguro discuss with you na hindi siya kasi eksakto na analogy when it comes to our household because that is what I teach. You have to be
Exactly.
frugal, di ba? Pay yourself
Exactly.
first, etc.,
Exactly.
etc. So the austerity
Exactly.
measures, tingnan mo nga rin na kung tama itong pagkakaintindi ko because you studied economic history. Pagka sa household kasi, we're talking about a single set of standard of living. Yung
Mm.
kita is for the entire household. So kung may austerity measures, lahat tayo mag-belt tightening, di ba?
Mm.
Pero when it comes to an economy, like the Philippine economy, pag nag-belt tightening tayo, kasi hindi naman tayo pare-pareho ng kita. Iba-iba ang ating
Ayun.
standard of living, especially in a country like ours na ang
Mm.
taas ng Gini coefficient, which means na
Yes.
yung ating income disparity
Mm.
bonggang-bongga. Pag
Mm.
nag-austerity measures tayo, sino ba yung tatamaan? Siyempre yung
Mm.
mahihirap. Hindi
Mahirap.
naman mag-iiba ng standard of living yung mayayaman, di ba? So,
Yeah.
is that the right way to explain why
Yeah.
austerity measures, unlike in households, cannot be expected to work its magic when it comes to being
Yeah.
prudent with your finances?
Yeah. Kasi so meron din akong personal finance journey as I was telling you dun sa episode, and I've really enjoyed my personal finance journey. And then at the same time, my wife is running a business and sometimes she asks me questions about her business. She has a stationery business. And then I'm also thinking about the country because I'm writing about the country. And napakaiba ng pagtingin ko sa austerity on every level. So kung household, talagang matipid ako, I make sure talaga malaki yung surplus. Pagdating sa business, sometimes, although hindi ko naman to business, but when my wife asks me a question, should I spend more? Sabi ko, ako may tiwala ako sa iyo eh.
Mm-mm.
magaling ka eh. So you should spend a bit more on your business kasi babalik yan ang babalik dahil ang
Mm-mm.
galing-galing mo. And then for the country, that's when I'm most, sige lang, gasta tayo kasi ang goal naman natin bilang bansa ay hindi lang to maintain balance sheet. Ang goal ng gobyerno ay hindi to maintain a good balance sheet. Ang goal ng gobyerno ay paglingkuran ng mga tao. Of course, maintaining a decent enough balance sheet so that that paglilingkod has a future is part of that. But we should not lose sight of the bigger picture, which is yung paglilingkod ng mga tao. And of course, what does austerity even mean pagdating sa gobyerno?
Mm-mm.
For many, that means reducing government debt. Pero ang problema, when you reduce government debt, bumababa din yung yung public outlays ng gobyerno, at pag bumababa yung public outlays ng gobyerno, bumababa yung surplus ng private sector. Kasi kung ikaw private sector sa Pilipinas, meron kang dalawang pwedeng pagkuhanan ng surplus. Unang-una, galing labas. Pwedeng galing labas yung pera. Pero ang baba-baba naman na nakukuha natin
Yeah.
pera galing labas. So saan kukuha ng surplus ang private sector? Siyempre, doon sa pera na nanggagaling mismo sa gobyerno ng Pilipinas. So effectively, every time nag-outlay ang gobyerno, nangungutang ang gobyerno, pupunta yun sa public sector as a surplus. And so it's not as if what the government loses, the Filipino people lose as well. That's why I'm very against maraming taong ginagawa nila, di ba? Kinukuha nila yung debt ng Pilipinas, tapos yung total debt, tapos divide nila by per capita, as if babayaran ng mga tao yung debt na yun. Hindi naman ganun yun. So the BIR is not going to show up to your house and say, ito yung utang ng gobyerno, bayaran mo to. Hindi yun ganun. Dahil pag nangungutang ang gobyerno, saan napupunta yung utang? Pupunta yun sa private sector at tayo yung private sector. So umiikot yung pera. So iba hindi talaga siya household by design.
Mm-mm. So, sige nga, in simpler terms, paki-explain mo nga dun sa regular Pinoy na huwag kang matakot pag kasi syempre alam mo, masyado tayong na-trauma dun sa laki ng mga utang ni Marcos.
Mm.
And we saw it being used not for
Yes.
infrastructure, not for
Yes.
economic growth, but for the family's luho. 'Di ba?
Yes.
So, can you talk to the Filipino people? Paano ka magiging kampante sa utang ng gobyerno?
Well, unang-una, let's be critical of foreign debt. Dahil ang foreign debt, kailangan natin bayaran using our foreign reserves. So one of
Mm-mm.
my big advocacies is for news agencies but also for government agencies, ihiwalay ang reporting ng domestic at local debt. Kasi ibang-iba ang function doon. Kasi pag foreign debt,
Okay.
kailangan mong gamitin yung reserves mo. Pag local debt, it's a lot easier to pay for that because you pay for that through your own currency. And yung
Mm-mm.
currency na yun ay technically unlimited dahil fiat
Mm.
currency tayo, pwede tayo mag-print ng pera. Of course, ang limitation nun is inflation. If you
Ah.
create so much money, magkakaroon ka ng inflation. But I would also say na, well, ngayon mataas yung inflation. So I think probably it should be a bit lower. But in general, inflation is not always a bad thing. And especially para sa mga mahihirap, sa tingin ng mga tao, when we talk about inflation, we always say that it's horrible for the poor. Not always, because in an inflationary situation, yung utang mo, bumababa yung presyo. Kasi yung inutang mo kahapon,
Mhm.
effectively, pag binayaran mo siya ngayon, after let's say 6% inflation, effectively, mas mura na siya. And who are the most indebted in a society is usually the poor. So yung rhetoric sa media where they say inflation always harms the poor the most, that is true to a certain degree, but it is also not true because ang mga baon sa utang yung mga mahihirap. In fact, inflation categorically hurts us, asset holders the most. Kasi tayo yung may mga assets na kinakain yung ng inflation. Hindi, well, ideally, kung magaling ka sa personal finance, wala kang utang at
Mhm.
asset yung hawak mo at matatakot ka nga sa inflation.
So, when you say na bumababa yung utang, bumababa kasi yung real value. Yun ang ibig mo sabihin. Yung, nagkaroon ng
Value.
inflation actually
Yes.
lowers the value of the debt that you incurred. That's what you're saying. Okay. So,
Yes.
ngayon,
And
go ahead.
also for the Philippine government, effectively,
Oo.
kung may utang yung Philippine government in an inflationary situation, yung real cost ng debt niya bumababa rin. So I'm not defending inflation and saying it's a great thing, but I think so. If you look at surveys, inflation is not an absolute evil the way it's portrayed in the media. What is for me an absolute evil is
Mm.
kawalan ng trabaho. Kawalan ng trabaho.
Okay.
Yun For me, yun yung absolute evil. So
Oo.
inflation is neither here nor there, probably most of the time bad. Pero ang masama talaga yung kawalan ng trabaho. At ang pinakamasama, ang crisis talaga is yung deflation, of course, and we can talk about that. So ako, if I were to argue with the Filipino people, if you look at the Pulse Asia survey, sasabi nila, ang number one concern is inflation, number two, trabaho. Ang pakiusap ko lang sa Pilipino, i-flip natin yon. Baka una yung trabaho, pangalawa yung inflation.
Okay, okay.
Modest request of the Filipino people.
Sige, ituloy mo dun sa discussion ng deflation para makita nila yung pagkakaiba.
Well, if you are in a deflationary situation, as we were in the 1950s, by the way, nung panahon ni Governor Miguel Cuaderno, pababa yung presyo ng bilihin, pero dahil pababa yung presyo ng bilihin, pababa yung pwedeng singilin ng ating mga magsasaka, pababa yung pwedeng singilin ng ating mga manggagawa, pababa yung pwedeng singilin ng ating mga kumpanya. At dahil pababa yun, lumiliit yung kita ng magsasaka, lumiliit yung kita ng kumpanya, at dahil lumiliit yung kita ng kumpanya, magtatanggal siya ng mga tao, ng
Tao.
mga manggagawa. So deflation is effectively an economic crisis, at usually pag deflationary ang ekonomiya, nawawala ng trabaho ng mga Pilipino. So hindi rin, wag sana tayong umasa na bababa ang presyo ng bilihin. Ang dapat asahan natin is mababa yung rate of inflation, meaning it's
Mm,
the prices are not as growing as fast as
yeah.
are not increasing as
Increasing
fast
as
as they were
fast.
before.
Okay. Naririnig ko sa mga interviews nyo, no, yung tungkol sa corruption na para bang contrary, sabi mo, para, something like contrary to popular belief is not the main cause of our lack of economic development. Eh, syempre, lahat tayo, anti-corruption tayong lahat, ano? So, can you talk to us more about this? I've heard very
Mm.
interesting discussions with you and Richard Heydarian about
Tsaka
ito nga,
another
Stephen
former investment
Quinning.
banker,
Ah,
Si Stevie Kuning.
and then that guy,
Another
yung sino yung pang-apat na guy na who has been here for 30 years?
Si Professor Jesus Felipe of De La Salle University.
Ayun.
Yeah, na former ADB economist who is now
Okay.
distinguished professor of economics sa DLSU. It's not that corruption doesn't matter, but if you look at societies that have transitioned from poor to rich, they didn't do it through solving the corruption problem. They did it through industrial policy. So yung
Okay,
two great
basta hold
examples
lang muna
here.
tayo dyan. Gusto ko kasing i-underscore yan. Can you say that again? The countries, and let's name them, maybe South Korea, what else?
Yeah, China, I
Yeah,
disagree with the Chinese political model. Pero
yes.
hindi
So,
matatawaran that they
also,
raised people out of poverty.
correct. So, parang they were able to achieve economic progress, economic development,
Mm.
not by eliminating corruption because they still
Mm.
have, but by, please continue.
But by industrial policy, meaning
Mm.
industrial policy is a government that manages the economy not in a socialist manner, but in a way that encourages the development of certain key sectors. Meaning this is a government na nagtataya, na nag-invest. And I mean, I don't understand why this is so controversial for many people, because we, of course, in the personal finance, we invest all the time. At kung pili tayo, we believe our money should go into this sector because we believe in this sector. And the government should act that way also. This is one case where I think the government can think a little bit like a household in terms of pipiliin niya dapat yung investment niya at pipiliin niya dapat kung saan merong room for growth. And I think that's industrial policy. Industrial policy can focus on services. Pero sa
Okay.
tingin ko ngayon, because of AI, our industrial policy should move away from services and really focus on manufacturing, because hindi na sustainable yung services amid AI. You should focus on manufacturing dahil may multiplier effect ang manufacturing, dahil mataas ang productivity sa manufacturing. At kahit hindi ka edukado gaano, if you are in a manufacturing job, mataas pa rin yung productivity mo. Whereas, mababa ang productivity mo sa services kung hindi ka edukado, kung wala kang college degree, for example, o kung hindi ka man marunong mag-English. So I think manufacturing is the way through which our society can involve more and more parts of the economy, more and more people from different parts of our society.
Why do you think we failed to industrialize?
Maraming moments where we could have industrialized. So I look at a couple of episodes. Yung unang-una, nung panahon ng mga Amerikano, hindi tayo nag-industrialize dahil meron tayong umbilical cord tied to the United States, because meron tayong free trade benefits with the United States. They wanted our agricultural goods. Padala lang tayo ng padala ng asukal sa kanila, ng
Oo.
kopra, ganyan. Happy na tayo doon. Meron tayong export surplus. As a result, we didn't diversify dahil sa colonial setup. And then in the post-war period naman, we could have diversified, we could have industrialized. Kaso ang problema nga was for me, yung tight monetary policies ng central bank noon which prioritized price stability over everything else. Even if nagkaroon actually tayo ng deflation ng panahon ni President Ramon Magsaysay, hindi pinansin yung industrial policy at hindi tayo nag-transition to export-oriented industrialization. Hindi tayo nag-depreciate. To transition to export-oriented industrialization, you have to do a couple of things. One way to do that is to depreciate the currency like Taiwan, like Korea, para competitive yung exports mo. Mahal talaga yung export ng Pilipinas. And by the time we started tinkering with depreciation, 1970 na mahirap na dahil ito na yung panahon ng mga oil crisis, a little bit too
Aha.
late. And also, yung mga depreciation natin noong 1970s, gaya na ng nabanggit ni Professor Raul Fabella, was not a product of deliberate policy making. It was a product of an economic emergency noong
Oh, so
1970s.
nakulangan ulit tayo sa planning, ano?
Mm, mm,
Planning.
mm.
So sa tingin mo, is it too late to get ourselves industrialized?
Sabi ni lagi niyang sinasabi ni Stevie Kuning, it's better
Na
late than
never.
never, because also wala naman po tayong choice amidst AI. Pababaan yung ating capacity to grow our service sector is quite limited by the fact na ang sasagot na ng telepono natin ng mga Amerikano ay hindi na
Oo.
Pilipino kundi mga computer na. And then the other thing is we can also rely on OFWs, but speaking as an OFW myself, marami naman sa amin, gusto namin dito magtrabaho sa Pilipinas. Nagbabakasyon ako sa Pilipinas ngayon. So wag naman
Mhm.
sana tayo mag-rely sa foreign
Oo nga.
remittances ng OFW. Let us imagine a future wherein pwede sila magtrabaho sa Pilipinas. We need to talk about the social cost, and this has gotten quite clear to me recently ngayon na ang dali-dali kong ma-homesick at lagi kong gustong umuwi dahil mahal ko talaga yung Pilipinas. Sana hindi na namin kailangan mag-abroad.
Oo nga eh. Tapos, so ito ha, babalikan ko ulit yung corruption. Kasi, well, I know that your premise naman is that you're not at all condoning corruption and you're still saying na talagang ano yan, debilitating then for the economy. It's
Mm.
just that
Yeah.
we are just too focused on that we
Mm.
sometimes forget ano pa ba yung pwedeng gawin at hindi mo
Mm.
naman maaasahang mag-zero corruption yan, ano.
Mm.
Pero kasi nga eh, para bang, ewan ko 'di ba, yung mga ranking ng corruption, medyo may pagka-top notcher tayo dun eh, no?
Medyo,
So, so yung, there's this two kinds of corruption eh, developmental corruption, yung
mm,
magnanakaw ka, pero magde-deliver ka. Pero meron yung
mm,
extractive corruption na
yes, yes.
nakaw and deliver nothing. Which reminds me, ito, alam mo, bata pa ako, narinig ko na tong joke na to. It's the 10% joke during the time of Marcos.
Oh my
Nag-uusap daw
God.
sila, si Marcos. Joke ito pero maganda yung pagkakakwento eh. Si Marcos at saka yung mga other leaders, si Lee Kuan Yew and the other Asian leaders. Sabi daw, okay, we agree, 10%, sabi. And then after so many years, they came back, what happened to you, Philippines? Sabi, did we agree 10%? Sabi daw ni Lee Kuan Yew, yes, 10%, you take 10%. Sabi daw ni Marcos, oh, I thought I leave 10%. So parang yun yung extractive corruption. So parang
Ang malungkot dun is joke siya pero nagtutunog totoo.
yun nga
Pag
eh.
sinabi mo sa Pilipino, baka hindi tumawa kasi baka di ba totoo yun?
So parang hindi ba yon yung nangyayari? Kasi sa atin na para bang the last yung mga scandals na yan, parang hindi mo maarok, 'di ba? Parang sobrang garapal naman itong mga to, no? Nawala na talaga ng konsyensya.
Itong flood control na to, grabe talaga, no? Pero sabi nga well, ito, I hate to say it this way kasi it sounds so crass.
Mm.
Pero sabi ni Professor Felipe, kung sobrang debilitating yung level ng corruption ng flood control, you would have expected it to create inflationary pressures.
Oh,
Pero hindi galing doon pero based on yung ginawa niya, dahil ang laki, di ba? So, kumuha ka ng
oo, oo.
inflationary pressure. Pero based on his computations, the inflationary pressures are not coming from any kind of corruption-related spending, and you can look at the Lasal policy.
Talaga?
So in other words, he's saying that despite yung pag-inject mo ng pera dahil sa corruption ng flood control scandal, meron pa ring fiscal space yung gobyerno. And hindi ako expert sa macroeconomics, hindi ako expert sa mga computation na yan. And I know Jesus's
As a
conclusions were
paper, no? Oo.
challenged very much by the UP School of Econ. So, but I suggest to our viewers na kung talagang you wanna get into this, basahin niyo yung debate ni Professor Felipe at yung effectively a Taft versus Diliman debate over fiscal space na
Oo.
ayoko na sanang pasukin dahil hindi rin naman ako expert doon. So, I mean, I hate to phrase it that way kasi of course it's still a moral evil despite the fact that you can argue about fiscal space as much as you want. Moral evil pa rin yung corruption. Bastos kasi yung flood control talaga.
Oo, eh.
Bastusan kasi.
Talaga eh.
Lantaran kasi yung flood control. So we should not lose sight of the fact that there are cases, times in the Philippines na yung corruption ay bastos na talaga. I would say, for example, of course, ang panahon ni Marcos, NBNZTE, flood control, Napoles. These are times na talagang, you just throw your hands up
Throwing
and
the
say, we need to do something about that. Actionan kagad natin to. Pero yung broader picture na gusto kong sabihin is, yung levels of corruption natin actually matches our level of economic development, more or less. So if you look at yung corruption perception index, yung mga ka-level natin are more or less the countries that have the same level of GDP per capita, which
Okay.
means more or less, hindi naman siya exact, but which means that corruption is part of a developmental process na habang yumayaman ang bansa, habang developing country ang bansa, meron talagang corruption. So, wala naman sa atin magsasabing sobrang yaman na bansa ng Pilipinas. So, hindi dapat natin ikagulat na maraming mahirap sa Pilipinas. In the same breath, wala naman sa atin magsasabing sobrang yaman ng bansa. So, hindi dapat natin ikagulat na maraming corrupt sa ating bansa because in a sense, we have to flip yung sinabi ni Noynoy Aquino, hindi kung walang corrupt, walang mahirap.
Mhm.
Kung mabawasan ang kahirapan, nababawasan ang korupsyon. Bakit?
Mhm.
Because the countries that are able to eliminate corruption have the money to eliminate corruption. They can
Mhm.
pay their cops well. They can invest in their justice system. Marami silang pera para mag-imbestiga. They pay their government employees really well like Singapore para hindi sila magnakaw. So, we should be vigilant when it comes to itong mga pambababoy na to, but at the same time, wag ang tawag ni Richard dito is yung kind of doomerism. Masyado naman tayong nega. We're a
Mhm.
poor country, of course we're going to be corrupt. Every poor
Mhm.
country is corrupt.
Mhm.
So we are on a journey, and I think that once we engage in this process of industrial policy at mas maraming yumaman na Pilipino, mapabawasan din yung korupsyon.
So nakita mo ba yan? I don't know kung inaral mo rin yun sa mga ibang bansa. Na nakita mo ba na yung pag-angat ng ekonomiya nila was matched by a decline in corruption?
So, ang favorite story ko, are you familiar with yung economist si Ha-Joon Chang? He's a
No eh.
South
Sige, tell
Korean
us.
economist. So, I think he's a boomer, so he's in his 70s. So, sabi daw niya, in Korea, when kausap daw niya yung anak niya, and
Ah.
then sabi niya, in the 1970s, we had a concept called in the 1960s, sabi niya, we had a concept called Korean time. Sabi ng anak niya, Dad, what's Korean time? I don't know what that is. Sabi niya, in the 1970s, Korean time meant
Late.
always late, parang Filipino time.
Ah.
Pero sabi niya, as the economy grew, naging mas efficient yung systems, naging mas efficient yung public transportation. People valued their time more kasi mahal ang oras mo in an expensive economy. So that now, Koreans are always on time. So this is not exactly corruption, but it's a very micro example of how wealth creates a different design, if you like, and this is
Mhm.
one of your
Mhm.
favorite words, design, if you like, in a society. Yung big example that Professor Chang provides is that pinakita niya na actually nabawasan ang corruption sa US in the 1920s during the period wherein yumaman yung United States, and he shows this sa kanyang book. It's called Kicking Away the Ladder. He explains
Mhm.
why actually it was economic growth first and then sumunod yung institution sa US. It was not the other way around. So Kicking Away the Ladder is a great book that looks at multiple examples of that across the world.
Oo. So parang may pagka-chicken and egg
Chicken and
situation
egg talaga.
siya.
Oh. Mm.
And so parang what you're saying is that we should just have to do what we can in trying to, gagawin mo pa rin syempre yung mga anti-corruption mo, pero wag ka na magkapaka-fixated dyan. Na,
Yes, and also don't use it as an excuse to not do anything. Kasi meron tayong mga politiko sasabihin nila, wag na tayong gumasta, wag na tayong mag-engage in industrial policy kasi nanakawin lang din naman yan. For me, that's a kind of defeatism.
mm-mm.
So, let's like yung isang example naalala ko nito na-interview ko before sa show ko sa Rappler si Rep Stella Kimbo. Gusto niya ng expanded spending during yung COVID. And
Kimbo.
then sabi ng mga tao, sabi kay Stella at that time, ang daming leakage masyado, so we should limit the spending. So, people were willing to let Filipinos starve, literally starve, bawasan yung government spending dahil takot sila na may mapitik here and there. I think naman yung ganun, medyo inhumane naman yun for me.
Oo. So it's really a balancing act, ano, na parang
Mm.
hindi ka pwedeng fixated lang sa isang aspect. Kailangan balansehin mo and you always have to think of the welfare nga of those na wala masyadong
Mm.
means to take care of themselves. So, kasi dito, I would like us to end with what I call a Faust talk. Medyo fast, pero I also give you a little bit of time to explain your answers. But before we go there, anything that you'd like to say with regard to your book?
Well, yung book ko is actually sa interviews ko because I always get asked about policy, present day policy dahil top of mind ng mga tao. I do provide ideas for policy reform, pero yung book actually kwento lang siya. So I don't pretend to be a policy maker. I don't pretend to
Oo.
be an economist. I am an intellectual historian, and what an intellectual historian does is this person looks at yung ideas that we take for granted, then ask why do we take them for granted. So kwento lang talaga yung
Kwento
libro.
lang.
Kwento lang yung
Pero
libro.
bakit intellectual? Dahil magna cum laude ka, ganon.
Hindi. Hindi dahil akala natin yung mga ideas sa utak lang pero isinasabuhay ng mga tao yung mga idea nila eh. And it's very interesting because ideas have consequences.
Okay.
Mm.
Bago tayo mag-Faust talk, gusto ko malaman, paano ba ituro ang history in a very exciting way sa mga estudyante natin? Kasi 'di ba para bang yung history, at least during my time, para it was more of memorization, ganyan ano.
Mm.
When did this happen? Who did this? Ganyan,
Mm.
ganyan.
Mm.
Sayang 'di ba? There's a wealth of knowledge that we can get and apply para maayos
Mm.
tayo din sa ating mga policies o mga pinagkagagawa natin. Ano sa tingin mo? Do you teach history?
Yes, I teach Philippine history to, well, now Filipino Americans mostly kasi nasa
Oh,
US
wow.
ako. Yeah.
Talaga?
Mhm. Yeah, so pinagpala ako na yung university ko mataas ang demand for Philippine history dahil ang daming Filipino-American students na nakapagturo ako. And my
Uh-huh.
answer to the question is history, the story part. Tell a story because dates are not stories. Diba?
Mm.
Dates are just dates. So when my students ask me, should I memorize this date? Sabi ko, if your professor hasn't memorized the date, why should you? Why should you memorize learn the story and live and imagine yourself in the story kasi history in a sense is like fiction. Nanonood tayo nagbabasa tayo ng nobela dahil meron tayong natututunan sa mga kwento at dapat meron din tayong
Correct.
matutunan sa kwento ng kasaysayan.
Yung paggawa ng pelikula, okay yun no? Parang pag nanonood na
Oo.
sila 2 oras, feeling la. That's why ako, ang tingin ko, pag gagawa ka ng pelikula tungkol sa historical occurrences, wag na masyado yung mga, anong tawag nila doon? Yung artistic license. Wag na, kasi
Wa-
yun yung paniniwalaan eh.
yes,
Di
yes.
ba?
I'll give you a very good example of a movie na very accurate but also still very entertaining. For me, yung Gomburza film ni Pepe Diokno
Is that
na
the one with
talagang
Papa Piolo?
yes, yes.
Okay. Sige, tell me
Maliit
why
lang
you
yun yung
like
role
it.
niya. He plays a very important, he plays Father Pedro Pelaez there, who
Mm.
would have been possibly just as famous as Padre Burgos kung hindi siya namatay. Hindi naman siguro to
Ah,
spoiler kasi kasaysayan to, kung hindi
yeah.
siya namatay sa isang earthquake at natabunan. So si Papa P siya doon. The reason why it's great is because it is based on the rigorous work of one of the greatest Jesuit
Historian.
historians, si Father John Schumacher, and was
Okay.
very, very loyal si Pepe dun sa story ni Father John Schumacher. But of course, it's very tagus siya sa puso dahil because it's also about the relationships between these priests and yung mentorship ni Padre Pelaez kay Father Burgos was at the center of that film and that I think drove the narrative tension. Despite the fact that halos walang creative license yung scene na yon. Very, very
Buti
accurate.
naman. Ako gusto ko ganun
Mm,
eh. Kasi pag minsan parang it's unfair to those
mm,
na gagawin ka masyadong mas
mm.
kontrabida para mas exciting. Eh, hindi
Yeah,
naman ganun. Pero tayo,
yeah.
parang na ano na inception na eh. Parang yun na yun. Yun na yung
Mm,
paniniwalaan
mm,
natin. Kasi tinamad na tayo
yeah.
basa ng libro eh. What do you think of General Luna?
Yung General Luna, well, ano na kami, peace na kami ni Direk Gerald. Nagdebate kami ni Direk Gerald about that. So, nag-public peace na kami ni Direk Gerald pagkatapos naming magdebate.
Ano ba yung
Pero
ano mo doon? Beef
I
mo
was
dati
very
doon?
I was very critical of the film dahil tingin ko yung message is slightly authoritarian. At kung matatandaan natin, si Mocha Uson, after niya mapanood yung General Luna, sabi niya, maghahanap ako ng General Luna type figure. At soon enough, nahanap niya yung kanyang General Luna type figure. At ito si Rodrigo Duterte.
Oo.
And I'm public naman ako na critical ako of yung EJK nung panahon ni Duterte. And I think
Yeah.
that may have, hindi naman sa, and to be fair to Direct Gerald, hindi naman sa sinadya na yon, pero nagkaroon yon, I think, ng konting kontribusyon doon sa Duterte phenomenon.
Oh. Okay, sige. Are you ready to go? But I will start with mga easy lang muna. Tapos,
Okay,
hindi, easy lang lahat to sa'yo. Okay, game. Coffee or tea?
okay. Coffee, 100%.
Sunrise or sunset?
When I was young, sunset. Habang tumatanda, sunrise.
Oh,
Mm,
baliktad ano? You now teach Filipino history to American students. When you
yes.
explain Philippine underdevelopment to them, what's the one thing that surprises them most?
Ayun, that it's not just all about corruption.
Mhm. Do your Berkeley students understand the Philippines better or worse than your Filipino students did? Did you also
Partida,
teach it locally?
I taught it locally. I mean,
Ah,
partida naman. I think like, syempre, by virtue of yung daily experience ng Filipino students, mas marami siyang alam to begin with. Pero I wouldn't discount yung desire ng mga Filipino-American students to learn dahil pinagkaila sa kanila ito eh.
oo. At saka kasi
Oo.
malayo sila, it's their way of
Mm,
going back to their roots, ano?
mhm.
Okay, sige. Name one Philippine president who came closest to getting economic policy right, in your opinion.
Early early magsaysay administration bago siya nabakuran ni Miguel Cuaderno, when he was actively encouraging alternative economic viewpoints to come from the National Economic Council, which is the predecessor of NEDA.
So, sayang, ganon. Pero
Mm.
among the more recent ones, meron?
Mahirap to. I'm actually a fan of the Sani Dominguez Finance Department, but I am not a fan of the Rodrigo Duterte administration. It's a very difficult position to. I'm a big fan of yung finance under the Secretary Dominguez. Pero
Which part?
should he have served somebody murdering people? Ewan ko na lang. I think yung fiscal expansiveness nila was
Mhm.
when Secretary Diokno, and supported naman by Secretary Dominguez to, said that the Aquino administration underspent
Mm.
and they foregrounded spending early on. Agree naman ako doon. Agree naman ako.
Oo. And the reason, oh,
Excuse me.
bless you. And the reason they
Excuse
gave
me.
was that they were plugging holes.
Holes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Kasi
I think
parang,
masyadong cautious yung Aquino
oo.
administration.
So parang ang nangyari rin, they were also, kumbaga, responding to
Mm.
their times, no? Na, oh, kailangan
Yeah.
ayusin ito. Para ka nagpapaayos ng plumbing. I-lay
Mm.
off mo muna sandali, di ba?
Uh,
Para matapadan mo.
Pero
Anyways.
actually, instead, kasi napaka-polarized ng politics natin, di ba? Instead of
Mm.
thinking of those two things as two different economic policies, we can actually think about them in terms of continuity na tinag yung holes, tapos tapos gumasta na. Parang mas ganun yung dapat pag-isipan.
Yan nga yung isa na hindi natin napag-usapan kanina. So isisingit ko na ngayon. 'Di ba parang yung economic planning natin masyadong coterminous with the president eh. Hindi dapat
Oo
ganun,
nga.
'di ba?
Hindi,
Ang
hindi.
planning na talagang magdudulot ng kabutihan, mahaba 'yan.
Mahaba. Yes.
Ayun,
Yes.
in
And
terms of
ito,
design,
si Stevie is always saying this.
talaga. And in terms of design, talagang dapat sila yung protektahan din natin, ano. Itong mga gumawa ng economic plan na long term talaga, dekada-dekada ang haba. Mahirap palitan dapat. It should be like an opt-out also.
Mm.
Hindi mo
Yes.
basta-basta mapalitan.
Yes. Yeah.
Tayo, papalit ng gobyerno, papalitan pati yung mga pangalan. Ganun din naman yung ginagawa. Anyway, so Yung question ko kanina
Yeah.
sa'yo, name the closest one to getting economic policy right. Now, the kabaliktaran, name the Philippine president who set us back the most.
Carlos P. Garcia, I know it's a controversial response dahil maraming tao naniniwala that Carlos P. Garcia was Filipino First. Actually, if you look at the documents, Filipino First was a rebrand of a national austerity policy. Yun yung original name ng Filipino First, National Austerity Policy. And Filipino First, what did it mean? It actually meant excluding our Chinoys from the economy. So
Oo,
even if you,
ganun.
kasi 'di ba, wag ka magbibigay ng dollar allocation sa mga Chinese businessmen. So medyo racist pa nga. So I think Carlos P. Garcia,
Mhm.
most overrated president.
Okay. So, syempre yan yung mga yan kasi inaral mo, di ba? Hanggang 80s ka, no? Para
Mm,
patingin naman yung
mm.
dito, kahit na hindi mo masyadong nasaliksik
Oo nga eh.
the rest of the decades.
Ah,
Pa.
so yung ako ang gusto ko sanang pag-isipan talaga and wala pa akong fixed opinions dito is yung Ramos administration. Kasi normally I am against what is yung aggressive privatization. Sa tingin ko may duty ang gobyerno
Ah.
sa kanyang society and therefore essential industries should not be privatized. Pero it seems as if the Ramos administration had no choice and those reforms were necessary during this time. So if I were to go back to studying economic history, I really want to be able to make an assessment of whether or not I agree with the policies of the Ramos administration. Kasi on the level of principle, parang ayaw ko, pero on the level of what was necessary at
At
that
that
time,
time, correct.
it seems as if
Yun.
that was the best he could do. So I withhold judgment, but
Mm.
it is a period na kailangan pang saliksikin.
So 'di ba, all the more na kailangan talaga tayong mas seryosohin natin yung history. Kasi we
Mm,
cannot just pinpoint, ay okay si ganito, ay bad si ganyan.
mm,
Hindi eh. These
mm,
people were reacting during their
mm,
specific time. So pagka mas ganado tayo na aralin yon, mas naiintindihan natin, ganito yung inaction niya. Kaya
mm,
ganyan. So, am I
mm.
still in that same environment, 'di ba? So hindi
Yeah.
lang natin kokopyahin, kasi binoto ko si Ramos eh, kaya kokopyahin ko siya,
Mm,
he's the best president. So parang all the more it is very important for us to study
yeah.
history,
Yeah.
what worked given those
Oo.
parameters and what will and will not work given our
And
parameters.
then of course, if I may add, siguro kailangan din aralin yung Arroyo administration. In particular, it's so hard to think about now. The Arroyo Rojas reform. So GMA and Mar Rojas,
Mm-mm.
the reformers who really set us down this road of services and call centers.
Yes.
Kailangan pag-aralan long term whether or not, kasi there are some people who say that was the best choice we had at that time.
At that time ulit.
At that time, right? And then some people are saying dapat nagkaroon ng foresight na hindi dapat services na nag-manufacturing na kagad nung panahon na yun dahil mas proven naman talaga manufacturing cases sa services. And then other people naman were saying that, well, sugal yun eh. So
Mm.
let's assess
Correct.
that. So that's another thing I want to study, the Arroyo Rojas reforms, and we should look into that.
Mm-mm. So your book is on economic history. They say historians try to diagnose, economists try to prescribe. Which one are you?
Ah, totally diagnostic, and that's why the prescriptions I suggest are, well, apart from yung broad principle of industrial policy, pag hininga ako ng policy, napaka-modest na mga policy recommendation ko. Like I said, like, you know, return the developmental function of the central bank
Ah,
sa report. And then my other one is sa reporting, hiwalay i-report yung foreign debt at saka yung domestic debt. I think those are very modest actually. And
ah.
uh,
Pero may malaking structural change doon, di ba?
I
Mabigat ang
think it might.
magiging ano nun. So, because of that, if you were BSP governor for 1 year, what's the first thing that you do?
Ay, hindi ko alam kasi hindi ko nga po gusto yung batas eh. So I would reject it because I would not well, number one, I'm not qualified.
Oh,
Pangalawa,
hindi,
kundi
hindi,
sa
hindi.
sa
Kunyari qualified ka na. You have been vetted na, ito na, si Lelo yung, let's just assume that you are really qualified to be a Bacau Central governor. Ano yung sa tingin mong first thing na gagawin mo?
Maglalabi ako sa Senado at sa Kongreso na palitan yung batas. Yun
Yun
yung
nga,
una kong
yung
gagawin.
sinabi mong dalawa na yon, ano?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Pero may mga low-hanging fruit, of course. Alam niyo naman na mahal ko ang pera. And so I
Ah,
would pay attention
yes.
to pera. Yes,
Oo,
yes.
at kausapin mo ako pag ikaw
Yes, oo. I-design natin yung pera para
opt
opt
out.
out na siya at hindi
Oo,
opt-in.
hindi
Yan, yan.
opt-in. Yan. O, di ba? Malaking bagay yon. So,
Yeah, yeah.
last question. And I want you to give us a straight answer. Are you optimistic about the Philippines?
I have to admit, this is the least optimistic I've been in 20 years. But yung general trend ko like that, para akong market eh. This is the lowest the market has been. And so this is the lowest I've been. But my long-term belief is that there's still a lot of room to grow. So kung willing ka maglagay sa PSEI, dapat optimistic ka pa rin dun sa overall trajectory ng Pilipinas. And actually willing naman ako maglagay sa PSEI kahit mababa ngayon.
Mm-mm.
Actually dahil mababa ngayon.
Ayan. Kasi alam mo, personally, ako din, lahat na lang na naririnig ko na economic briefing, parang, oh, the sky is falling. Kaya lang, the contrarian in me would say, aha, everybody's saying that the sky is falling. Maybe,
Mm.
maybe.
Yeah.
Malapit na. So, ayun naman
Oh,
ang paningin ko.
yeah.
Okay, so your
Okay.
parting words, Leloy?
My parting words is just, like we should have financial literacy on every level. Level ng individual, level ng pamilya, level ng negosyo kung meron kang negosyo, and level ng gobyerno. And of course, yung literacy na yun ay nagpabago depende doon sa level. So kagaya ng sabi ko, barat ako financially, barat ako sa personal finance, pero expansive ako pagdating
Expansionary
sa
ka naman.
gobyerno. Oo, oo.
Okay, so
Okay, thank you.
with that, I'd like to thank you all for joining us in this really nice episode of FQ Mom Podcast. So
Yes.
we do wish that you picked up something and at least picked your curiosity about our usual excuses. Sabi ni Leloy, no, na lagi na lang ginagamit natin yung mga excuse ng corruption. Even if you want to continue fighting them at grabe, bonggang-bongga talaga sila kung magmurakot. We should also do the other side of it, which is to really try to industrialize. And for mga regular people na wala naman kayo in the government, no, you just try to do what is best in your own household. Do your job well, save and invest so that, kasi syempre kung nagkaroon na tayo ng maraming Pilipino na okay, na with a high FQ, pasasaan ba tataas din siguro itong ekonomiya natin. And with that, maraming salamat, Leloy.
Maraming salamat.
Thank you everyone for joining. This has been Rose Press Fausto, your FQ mom, wishing you all a high FQ.